it should be.
We are witnessing history with Nebraska men's basketball so far this season. Always feels fitting to point that out when we have the opportunity to. 20-2 record overall this season. Got off to that 20-0 start, lost their last couple of games here, ranked in the top 10 in the AP and the net rankings. KenPom has them at 13 in quad 1 and quad 2 record. Overall 12-2 versus the top two quadrants in men's college basketball. But a well-earned respite for Nebraska with a few days off in between games. Here's Rick Pizzo with Fred Hoiberg.
Fred, I know everybody goes.
Now let's welcome our head coach, Fred Hoiberg, for Nebraska's men's basketball head coach. Joined on the beat today. I know this is from yesterday, by the way, and their 20-2 record overall record. That's good. 9-2 in the Big Ten. Let's listen to what you have to say about that.
Definitely coming at a good time, Rick. And I give Rink Mast a lot of credit for what he was dealing with. And he had the illness. He went out and tried to stretch a little bit. I saw him with about 12 minutes on the game clock before tip, and he just said, "Coach, I just there's no way I can't do it." And he couldn't even keep water down. And you hate to get these are the texts. They're nightmares for us as coaches. Is wake up and the trainer says, "Hey, Rink was throwing up all night," and obviously very weak. So he slept all day and then just couldn't do it, even though he gave it every shot. And then we came home, and that next night he had to go to the ER at about 11:30, and it didn't get home till about 3 in the morning. Had a little bit of reps and practice that next day, and then went out and gave it a shot. But he certainly was not full strength in that Illinois game. It was great to see Braden back out there and didn't skip a beat, obviously, with the way that he performed, hitting 6 threes, scoring 20 points, keeping us in that game against Illinois. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you see the 0-2 record in the last week, but you go into Michigan, number 2 team. A lot of people are predicting them to win the national championship, and you battle them all the way without 2 of our most important pieces. That was our third 2-day prep in a row, our second road game in a row, and I give our guys a lot of credit for the way that they went out there and competed, and I just really felt we ran out of gas. A lot of that had to do with Michigan's length, their athleticism, defensively, they're top 2 in the country, and I just thought we wore down. And then Illinois, that's 11 in a row for them. In fact, the last time they lost was our game in Champaign. And, ranking that first game at 17-8, he just didn't have the stamina, the energy. But he looked a lot better in practice yesterday. We're off. We took Tuesday off, and now we get 3 days prep heading into a very tough environment at Rutgers.
Fred, I'm glad you bring up all the positives, because the one sports phrase that a lot of folks love to use that I just don't agree with is there's no such thing as a moral victory. I understand there are losses on your record, but I'm curious as to what you said to the guys when you got back in the locker room after that game, knowing that this stretch was coming and knowing what they had done for you guys over that stretch against Michigan and Illinois.
Well, the first thing I did, Rick, is I gave him a lot of credit for going out there shorthanded and battling the way that we did in Ann Arbor. Now, that being said, the next morning in the film session, we got after him pretty good because there was a lot of mistakes that were made in that game on both ends that I thought prevented us from winning that game. We missed 4 wide open layups at the rim in the second half, and you make your layups, it doesn't come down to the last possession. I thought Sam made a great play. I thought he stepped in. Those calls a lot of times go either way. We didn't get it. It's unfortunate. But that being said, there was a lot of things that we could have done better to end up on top of that one. And then Illinois, it was the first time all year. Our guys have been so good. They've been so resilient. They've battled adversity. This team, as much as any I've ever had, you see the communication in the huddles. Those guys hold each other accountable. For the first time all year, I just sensed, a little bit staring at the floor. They just gave in a little bit. And again, Illinois had a lot to do with that. But, that's not who we are. That's not what has gotten us to this point. We had a very spirited workout that next morning after the Illinois game. And now it's about regrouping. It's about getting back to being who we are, what's gotten us to this point, and going back to the basics. We need to finish possessions better. You play 2 of the longest, most athletic teams in our league that are elite on the offensive glass, but we didn't finish up possessions well enough. We weren't physical enough. We didn't hit well enough. So those are the type of things we have to get back if we want to continue on this stretch. We have a very tough game. Rutgers had Michigan State down 15 in that second half. It was an 8-point game under 5 minutes. So we're walking into a incredibly tough environment. The RAC is one of the great venues in college basketball, and we got to get back to being who we are.
Yeah, and Rutgers has a true scorer in Tariq Francis, who's a really tough guy to guard. Freddie, you won 20 straight games this year before this past week, 24 dating back to the Crown Championship of a year ago. And I know that you're only as good as your next game, but at the same time, how much did you try to tell the guys to truly enjoy what they were doing at that point? Because it's very rare, not just at Nebraska, not just in the Big Ten, it's rare in college basketball anywhere to be able to win 20 straight.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was a heck of an accomplishment, and our guys deserved a lot of the credit and a lot of the things that were being said about them. You know, our biggest job as coaches is getting them on to the next assignment. And we talk to them all the time about keeping their walls up. And if they buy into it, they buy into the hype, they're going to lose that edge. They're going to lose all the things that got us to that point to win 20 straight games. You know, an incredibly tough schedule and a lot of difficult environments. We won 5 road games in the first half of our Big Ten schedule. That's obviously not easy to do. So enjoy it, but at the same time, we got to move on. And that's where, when I look back on, Rick, probably the key week of our season, when we played early in the year in December, when we had Creighton, those rivalry games are always tough. End up winning by 20, had 2 days prep to play our first Big Ten game against Wisconsin, and did a great job of preparing. They run a lot of different actions out of their ball screen motion in a 2-day prep, and went out and had a great game, maybe our most complete game of the season, and then have 2 days prep to go on to a game at Illinois where we got our first road win, which I think gave our guys the confidence to know that we can do it. So when I looked at that week, just how good of a job our guys did of not, you know, buying into it, you know, riding the highs of the emotion. In this business, it's so important. You have to put the big wins behind you. You have to put the tough emotional losses behind you. Our guys passed the test on the big wins. Now we're going to see what we're made of. We have 2 tough losses in a row. The first time we lost at Pinnacle Bank Arena this year, and now we got to bounce back and go out and try to find it again on the road.
Fred, you've got to enjoy in your coaching career something that most college coaches don't. Your sons. First, you coach against one, and I remember the really cool moment when Tom started Jack in a game. And then you have Sam playing for you right now. So I'm not sure if I'm asking you to take your coach hat off and put your dad hat on. But with Sam specifically, here's a young man that's become one of the leaders of this team and has transformed himself into a really legitimate scorer, a basketball player who can do a little bit of everything. Against Illinois, he plays 36 minutes, doesn't turn it over, leads you guys in rebounds and assists. How do you kind of separate how proud you are of him as both a dad and his basketball coach?
Well, the first thing, Rick, is just I can't believe how fast this has gone. This is Sam's 5th year. He redshirted his first year. And, you know, when I look back at Sam's journey, I'll never forget this. We had 2 season-ending injuries to Juwan Gary and Emmanuel Bandamel, who really were the heart and soul of that team a couple of years ago. And I had a conversation with Sam. Emmanuel had just had a brutal leg injury at Penn State, and I talked to him on the plane. I said, hey, you're a 3rd point guard now. You got to be ready to play. We got it handed to us our next game, but Sam might have been our best player. And then we go on the road to Maryland, and he scores 15 points off the bench, and really he's been a staple in our rotation ever since. I guess the thing that I'm really proud of with Sam is he always kept himself ready in case that moment ever came up. And I don't know if he would have ever got an opportunity had we not had those injuries, but that's what this game is all about. That's, you know, really, I guess, what defined my career is I was an opportunistic player and took advantage if a situation called for it. Jamarcus Lawrence was in the same boat a couple of years ago when he really emerged as a big time rotation player. And then we make the NCAA tournament that year, and those guys had huge roles on that team. So he really has. And, you know, it's fun to see some of the things when you look back after games and the recognition that he's getting from some of the coaches and what they're saying about him. But he is. The thing I'm most proud of Sam is how he's really embraced the leadership role. He and Rick Mast have done an unbelievable job of keeping our guys together, keeping them humble, making sure that everybody's coachable when we get on them in film sessions, off-court chemistry. This team is as close as any that I've coached as well, and Sam certainly has had a lot to do with that.
Fred, I want to go a little bit into the league and some other coaches, some first-year coaches. You know, you've dealt with being a first-year coach in college, in the NBA as well. Darren DeVries has Indiana doing some really good things. You've beaten them already this year. Ben McCollum, same thing at Iowa. You still have to play Iowa twice during the regular season. What's your take on being a first-year coach in a league like this with the schedule that everybody has to play, and specifically the job that those guys have done?
Yeah, these coaches have done an incredible job, and certainly have raised the level. I'd throw Nico obviously in there as well for how those guys are going out and competing every night, every time they step on the floor. That's a really hard game to play. We were down 6 at the barn a couple weeks ago, and just the amount of close games that those guys have played. But yeah, I mean, you look at what Darren's doing right now with his team at Indiana. They're rolling, and Ben has done a phenomenal job as well, having Iowa, up in the upper half of the league, and a team that's playing, I think, their best basketball of the season right now. And it's a grind, Rick. I mean, you play these 20 games. It's every night you step on the floor. If you're not ready, if you're not 100% locked in, you can get embarrassed in this league. But coaching wise and top to bottom, you look at this league, it's the best of any in the country.
Fun conversation with Fred Hoiberg. And moving to hockey, where the top 2 teams in the nation face off this Saturday. Not in Ann Arbor, not in East Lansing, but in the deep. Wolverines head coach Brandon Naurato joins us next.
Wow.